Okay, so if I could get Lauren to join me on the line. Lauren's going to be presenting on the winning attributes of top women professionals. Lauren, do I have you on the line?
You do. How are you? Thank you so much.
I'm good, good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I appreciate it. I enjoyed hearing all of the panelists speak, so I'm excited to give input. And a lot of what I talk about actually goes in line with what these ladies already said, so it's good that we all have the same thought process.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and give you the floor. You just let me know when you're ready to advance to your first slide, and then thereafter, just whenever you want to advance slides, just let us know.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we go right into my slides, I actually do an introduction in there, so we can do that. I'm really excited to be speaking with all of you today, and I thank you for your time. It's an honor. Excited to share some of the attributes that I feel are necessary and vital to all women professionals today, and just some things that worked well for me. Next. We can advance to the next slide. So just to introduce myself, my name is Lauren Leight. I am a major account sales manager for Canon Solutions America. For those of you that are not familiar with Canon, we're an office and technology solutions company. We specialize in consulting with businesses on their printing and scanning needs, in addition to analyzing workflow around digital and paper documents. I've been at Canon for just over 15 years now. I started out in a business-to-business sales role, and then in 2013, I moved into sales management. So I've been there ever since. I've moved into various management roles, and today I have a team of sales professionals. There's 5 total right at the moment. They hold the responsibility of managing about 150 accounts inside of Philadelphia for each one of their assignments. I graduated from Penn State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in psychology. And after graduating, I had this big plan. I was going to move on to further schooling and work in the mental health and medical field. And that quickly changed, a year later. So I decided it wasn't for me, and I moved into technology sales. And I haven't looked back. I actually, I'm really fortunate to work for Canon. They've really given me a lot of opportunities to develop both personally as well as professionally. Currently today, I'm active in a Women in Leadership mentoring program, which focuses specifically on women in leadership roles, which I was very surprised that Canon had, and I had no idea. So it's really impressive that my company values this, and I know some of the ladies earlier talked about aligning yourself with the right company and making sure that your values are their values. So I'm thankful that I am in a company that values the same thing that I do. I live in South Jersey. Some of the things, I'm actively involved as a community coordinator for a local nonprofit youth running program, Healthy Kids Running Series. And I host that in my town, and we aim at teaching children to lead an active, healthy lifestyle through the sport of running. On my free time, I enjoy spending time with my husband and 3 kids and my family and friends. I am pretty passionate about exercising, baking, reading, and traveling. I got to have that balance, the exercise and then the baking. We can move to the next slide. I want to start off with this statement because I truly feel that the best way to achieve success is to find what works for you and make it a habit. I struggled for years with getting into a groove that provided me balance in all areas of my life. I found that I needed to adopt those small, healthy, daily habits that get me in the right mindset and make some strides towards achieving my goals. For me personally, that means getting up pretty early, well before my family, just to ensure that I'm getting all those things for myself in. I make sure that I exercise or, be it for class, to go for a run, just some things that can de-stress me and start my mind in the right spot. And I take a few minutes just to have a cup of coffee, just mentally review what I want to do that day. We talked about putting it out in the universe earlier. I'm a big believer in visualization and just envisioning how I want my day to look. Those days when I'm on top of my game, I'll do, all the things you should do, like prep dinner for that night. That doesn't always happen. But one of the more important is practicing gratitude, especially, after this year, just focusing on what I'm thankful for. It sets my day up in the right tone. Next. So there's 5 things I want each of you to leave this presentation thinking about. What does your daily routine look like today, and how can you make it better? So is there 1 or 2 habits that you can write down that you would like to adopt? What are your goals? Are they written down somewhere? I know a lot of us use, the beginning of the year to put down all the things you're going to stick to in that coming year, but can you do that today? Can you use today to think about where you want to see yourself in a year? This year has been very difficult for a lot of us, very interesting for some of us, and some of us it's been really fun. It really depends on your perspective. And I'm sure your daily routines have changed. I know mine has. So what does the next year look like for you? The third thing is something I'll talk about later in the presentation, but doing something each day that scares you. It doesn't have to be something extreme like skydiving or anything like that, but small and manageable. And maybe that means calling that person that intimidates you, or mentioning the new idea that you have to your boss, or looking for a group that you're interested in and signing up for it, or a program that you've been looking at. Express gratitude to someone in your life, be it a coworker, a family member, a neighbor. You'd be surprised how much this will help both you and that other person. And finally, reach out to somebody new to network, be it someone inside of your organization or someone that you've always been meaning to introduce yourself to. You never know where that relationship's going to lead you or what opportunities can evolve from it. Next. So I love quotes. I'm a big fan of them. I'm going to go through 10 principles with everyone, and before each of them, I pull out a quote that will kind of jive with what I'm trying to say. So let's start with an important reminder to all of us. Never get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life. Next. Having balance in your life. So this is one thing that's so easy to get away from, and we're all guilty of losing that balance. We get so caught up in our next deadline or our next item on the to-do list that we forget to focus on keeping a healthy balance. There are 4 areas that make up a balanced life for me, my family and friends, my health, finances, and my spirit. So I spoke to establishing that daily routine. This was huge for me to make sure I'm attending to my health before the day starts. If I skip those things, I automatically, get catapulted into work, and by the time focusing on my family, I've used up that entire tank on the work day and everybody else, and then, I go unattended to. And what I found, it's the quickest and easiest way to burn out, and at that point, you're really not capable of helping anybody else. So for these reasons alone, it's important to do what you need to do to have that balance. Be it the night before or first thing in the morning, just making sure you're prepping yourself to so important. Next. Your mindset is a powerful indicator of your success. So, what is your mindset? Do you tend to see your glass half full, half empty? If you're positive, you'll see opportunities instead of obstacles. Next. There's so many things that you hear about these days on just the different ways that people try to remain positive. Your energy as a leader is the first indicator of the energy of your team. So if you come into a situation stressed and negative, your team's going to follow suit. Your energy leaks to all of those around you. It's so easy to get overwhelmed and stressed, especially if it's something that's not going your way. I have to work on this daily and, ask myself, how am I responding to this situation, and how can I confront this challenge as an opportunity? If you get in the habit of doing this, you'd be amazed at not only how much more productive you will be, but how many more opportunities will come directly from that challenge. The smallest example is just how you start your day. I was stuck in traffic constantly when I was driving into the city for my commute, and I would be so frustrated. By the time I got to work, I was frazzled and stressed. I really had to work hard at turning that time into something productive. So be it I would touch base with my team or reach out to a client that I hadn't been able to get in touch with, and sometimes find a new podcast. It's easy to get closer to that positive mindset when you're doing these things that take you away from the frustration of the moment. Another thing is saying thank you to somebody and showing gratitude to that other person, whether it's the person you bought your coffee from or, the person that held the door for you. That smile that you're giving them will put the same on their face and can change the whole trajectory of your day. Next. So what are your goals? What makes you excited? So set a goal that makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning. Next. So what goals do you have that will make you an effective leader, and why do you want to achieve them? Some of the ladies mentioned this earlier, but knowing what your why, and it's one of the most important things that you can spend your time defining. So when the days get hard and you get overwhelmed, having this in the forefront of your mind is going to push you through. Some people have specific goals, and, some can be you want that big raise or you want to retire by a certain age, and some people will say, my why is my family. Just knowing why you're working so hard puts that reason right in front of you every day and keeps you moving forward to that goal. So, as a leader, what 3 goals do you have this year? Write them down. Keep them somewhere you can see them every day. Some people have vision boards that remind them. Some people simply just bullet point it down. But having that visually in front of you is just so important. So, answering this question every day and making sure that you're doing things that chips away at those goals will make you feel that much more satisfied at the end of the day. Next. Your life is controlled by what you focus on. It's completely true. It goes with the whole mindset, but nothing can be truer than this. Next. The strong leaders have, laser focus. They manage their time effectively. One thing that helped me and my team, and it's something so simple and it's helped so much, is just doing that daily to-do list. And I do that list at the end of the day for the following day. And it just allows me to get right on top of those tasks as soon as I start my day. And for me, I'm pretty old school, so the act of crossing off those items on my to-do list in my old school planner is something that I love. It makes me feel accomplished. But you can do it anywhere. You can do it in your phone, in your calendar, whatever works for you. But by doing this, how is your day being managed? Are you maximizing the time that you have? One of the things I struggled for years with was delegation. And then I learned that in order to be an effective leader, I have to recognize both my strengths as well as my weaknesses. How can I delegate those tasks that are not my strong suit to enable me to, maximize the time I spend on things that are? I'm not suggesting ignoring your weaknesses, and I'll touch on education, but, do the best job you can working with your strengths. And make sure that your work is quality work. At the end of the day, the end result and product that you present is you presenting yourself. And whether you realize it or not, your work is always being seen. It's always being inspected. And ensuring that you're doing that quality work will set the tone not only for your team to follow suit, but also show your superiors that you're passionate and you care about what you do. Next. The next attribute that I'll touch on is one of my favorite, and what I really feel has changed my life a lot is when it comes to changing your life, if you're not scared, you're doing something wrong. Next. So get out of your comfort zone. Are you doing what scares you? Only then are you growing as a person, as a leader. I suggest applying this to both your personal and professional life. Just to give you an example of one of each, I've always been terrified of doing a triathlon. It's something that the idea of biking with all those people, it freaks me out. But one of my life goals is to complete an Ironman. And if I wasn't going to be able to do a triathlon, I certainly wasn't going to be able to do an Ironman. So I just went ahead and signed up for my first one. It was terrifying. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And I finished second to last because I got a flat tire. But, that first step was so scary, but something, that puts me in a totally different trajectory. Professionally, I had seen a gap in how our training was going around a new software solution that we had, so I emailed our president, and I asked him for a meeting to share with him the ideas I had about training new employees. He was receptive and supportive, though, we didn't change everything that was happening. 1 year later, I was put on a group that has a hand in developing a new product for our company, and I'm on that group today, and I truly think the only reason that happened was because I got out of my comfort zone and I emailed him and took a risk. But without trying, nothing's going to happen. Be innovative, be unconventional. That's what's going to make an impression and have others remember you. There's a pretty good read that I read. A customer of mine had suggested it to me years ago called Who Moved My Cheese? It's a very short book, but it's basically saying if you can't change your approach, if you can't pivot and get through a situation, then you're not going to move forward. And, if you can't do that inside of your company and adjust to things and show that you can do that, in my opinion, it makes you seem less valuable. And, just always be willing to step outside of that box and be different. Next. What are your values as a leader, and do you act in alignment with them? It's true that integrity alone will not make you a leader, but without integrity, you're never going to be one. Next. So what are your moral principles, and how do you want to be remembered as a leader? Integrity is such an important trait. When it comes to who I think of, when I think of who I admire, I can honestly say the character of that person is what makes me admire them. Are they a good person? Do they behave with honesty? And because of that, I've always prided myself on doing the right thing by my clients all the time. And it's always worked for me in the long run because that's the most transparent trait that those people are seeing in me. People can see when someone's acting ethically, and if they truly want the best for you, they'll work that much harder for you. They'll naturally want to do well because you always have their back. So stay true to your word, keep your promises, give your team credit or your counterparts credit for what they do and acknowledge their efforts, help them rise. It's something that's not very easy to do, but admit that you're wrong and learn from those mistakes, still trying to find the positive. Next. One of the most important actions that a leader can do is lead by example. If you want everyone else to be passionate, committed, dedicated, and motivated, you go first. Next. So I love to learn new things. I've always been like that. I've always loved school. Not everyone is like that, and I understand that, but never lose that ability to learn. So become that expert in what you do. So always be sharpening your skill set. Always look for further ways to educate yourself. That'll relay into the passion you have for what you do. So you not only do you need the knowledge and skills, but you need that passion. That you need to show that energy, and others will feed off of that. I've always been one to grab onto new product or processes because to me, if I don't know what I'm selling or what I'm telling somebody else, they're not going to get it from me, and they're not going to trust me as that consultant. And then communication. There's a difference between listening and waiting for your turn to speak. Next. How well do you communicate? Are you strong in your message? As a leader, being able to effectively communicate is key in being able to lead others and communicate your message. Some things that I make a priority inside of my presentations, be it in group or one-on-one, is my message straightforward? Am I holding eye contact? Eye contact's the one thing that really makes a difference when I'm on the receiving end of a message. If the person that's speaking to me cannot hold my eye, I'm less trusting of them. Make sure you're listening and you're able to reiterate the other person's message if needed. Your time is the most valuable thing that you can give your audience and your team. Next. Some of the most ordinary things could be made extraordinary simply by doing them with the right people. So we talked earlier about networking. Next. And how often do you spend time doing that? It's likely not a mandatory piece of your job, but it's one of the most important things you can spend your time doing. Aligning yourself with the people that share your vision, looking for a mentor. People are always willing to help. Are you reaching out to other departments and industries to introduce yourself? Because that one person, they could change your entire trajectory of your career? Do you have trade shows or marketing events that you can go to and make 1 or 2 new contacts? Next. And finally, I'll conclude with an attribute that I want all of us to embrace and work on every day moving forward. Confidence isn't walking into a room thinking you're better than everyone. It's walking in and not having to compare yourself to anyone at all. Next. Are you confident? Are you confident in your mission and, more importantly, your worth? So tremendously important. All of us are important and needed and strong, and I can't say this enough, and it's so easy to feel like this is not true, especially with all the demands that are placed continually on all of us. Our list just keeps getting longer and longer. But nothing is more valued than a leader with confidence. This is something you can get through conversations. Even when you don't know the answer to something, you're so confident in your skill set that you don't need to know the answer, and you can be wrong because you're still confident in who you are and your skills. Being assertive and strong-minded, not to be confused with arrogance, because there is a difference. I always relate it to the movie Wonder Woman. She's so strong and confident, but by no means arrogant. So I strive to be like that and be able to show resilience to situations and get your point across. So I challenge each of you to find one thing you can do that will bring you confidence before the next important, like meeting or presentation, one song or something like that. Next. And just to conclude, I can't thank all of you enough for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to speak with you. And I hope you took a few things away from this presentation that you can apply to your life and career, because we're all truly each Wonder Woman. Thank you.
And Lauren, thank you. What a great presentation. I like the confidence quote. It's great because we do find ourselves comparing to each other quite a bit, and trying to see that. So that's a great quote. I'm going to make note of that here. So does anybody have a question they would like to ask? Questions are coming in now. If you'd like to ask your question live, you can do so now by hitting *6. Diane says she loves the Wonder Woman slide. And Laura says, nicely done. Thank you. So if you have a live question, you can hit *6 now and ask that question while we have our keynote on the phone. And Abby says, thank you for a great, refreshing perspective. Wonder Woman has always been my favorite.
It really is. It's one of my favorites. I always tie it back to that. It's even more helpful that my daughter likes it too. So I'm like, yeah, just keep on watching it.
I remember coming home from school and I had to fight my brother over watching Wonder Woman or He-Man.
Yeah.
All one. Yeah. Kim says, excellent presentation. I can see myself easily sharing this information with my senior management team. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
So if you have a live question you want to ask about this presentation, you can do so now by hitting *6. Allison says these tips are all so important. How have you adapted these tips to working from home? Oh, that's a great question, Allison. Lauren, I'll leave you the answer.
That is. So this year has been the most trying that I have had, I think, ever because of that. And we had the whole thing going on here, the remote learning and working from home. And in the middle of this, I actually got promoted to a different management position. So it's been challenging. And for me, getting up earlier, and I know that sounds ridiculous, but I need to have that time in the morning to just get my mind right and just make sure all the things that suck up my time during the day that I don't need to spend my time doing are done before, my team wakes up, before my kids wake up. It's just having that ability to, and one thing too that I just started doing is blocking off time throughout the day. So we operate off of Teams right now, and I made the mistake of just having my calendar open, and it got out of control. So I actually started blocking off 15-minute blocks where I can, grab a cup of coffee or step outside for a second and just give myself that minute to breathe where nobody else was calling on me.
Absolutely. We've had some more questions come in. So the next question is, how important do you think it is to practice self-care to be a leader? And I actually, before I release the forward to you, I've had another person ask me about a quote about if you're not scared. Was that slide 4 or 5? Do you recall? I'll pull it up while you answer that initial question.
So I think that it is extremely important to practice self-care. It's, you know, it's one of those things that if I don't take that mental health day, if I don't take that few hours off, or I don't spend that time making sure that I'm getting my exercise in, it shows in everything that I do, whether it be parenting or in my leadership abilities and my abilities to even really think. So I think it's one of the most important things that you can do, because at the end of the day, you're the most important person. And if you're not taking care of yourself, your job's always going to be there. It's always going to get done. You'll always get it done, but don't sacrifice yourself for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think I found this quote for Nora: when it comes to changing your life, if you aren't scared, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Hopefully that's the quote that Nora was looking for. And thank you for answering Joe's question on the self-care. It's so important, self-care. I think a lot of people are dropping the ball.
It's hard now, too, because we're faced with such a different circumstance than we ever have. Whether you have family at home or not, it's so different. You know, you may never, a job you were so great at in person, you've now probably had to pivot and do it virtually and learn all of those skills, and it's very easy to get frustrated and overwhelmed.
It really is. It really is. It's such a difficult time. You know, I can't say it any better than what Lauren's just said. I think it's great answers to these questions and a great presentation. So I'm going to give you one more chance before we have to move on to our panel. If you have a live question, you can ask that question now by hitting *6 on your keypad. Really encourage you while we have the keynote here on the phone to ask your question if you have one.
This is Joette, and I just wanted to tell Lauren that was an outstanding presentation. And I guess my question is, listening to you, are you also a life coach?
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. I'm not, but it's funny because years and years ago, I was trying to find my way, I guess, and it was that was one of the things that had occurred to me, and something I think later down the road I would love to try and do something with. I feel like that's the reason I kind of stepped into Healthy Kids running series too, because I wanted to have that platform to try and help others. And, you know, I started with the kiddos. That's great.
And will the slides be available to us? Because I was taking notes, but I didn't get all the quotes.
Yeah. Shelley, they're going to be up, right?
Yeah, they will be. I'll get them. Everything's recorded, so we'll get that online within 24 hours, and then you can go back and get the slides if you wish.
And feel free to contact me. You know, I'm definitely open if you ever wanted to reach out and bounce some things off me.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
That's great. Great compliment. And, it was very uplifting presentation. And just kind of bringing us back to, you know, what we can do to help, no matter what your situation is right now. Because everybody's situation is so different these days. It's on the spectrum of, I'm okay, I'm just a little mad because the store is out of something, or I'm not sure if I'm going to have a job tomorrow. It is such a big spectrum of where everybody's at these days. So I think this applies to both sides of it. So Lauren, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and move on to our panel of the day.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much for the opportunity.